This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Coop's Comedy Corner.
Comedy Corner, I'm your host, Steve Coop. Happy 2026. We recorded this before the new year, but it's the new year, and I want to give a big shout out to Jimmy Corhan, who produces the show of Comedy Train Wreck. He does a lot of great stuff for a lot of Philadelphia comics and entertainers. So definitely follow Jimmy Corhan and Comedy Train Wreck. And we have a great show today. You know, it's funny. My guest, he was on Cooper Talk. I think it was like 12 and a half years ago or 11 and a half years ago. And I remember he came on because he knew Patrick O'Sullivan, a comic who I worked, who was an actor who I've been talking to Patrick forever. And my guest, he does so much stuff. He has his LA Dispensary show, his Substack, his music. He writes. He was host. And he got his start that I thought of on a reality show. That's when I first saw him years ago. But my guest is Zach Selwyn. How you doing, Zach?
Not bad, Coop. How you doing, man?
Good. Man. I go on your Facebook. You have so much stuff going on. I want to hear to start off about Zachariah and the Lobo Riders.
Yeah, that's not really a comedy project for me. It's sort of an outlaw country band I've been doing since about 2002 in LA, and we've been touring forever. And it's just sort of become part of my life, and amazing to keep a band together that long. But it's just a really cool, country rock experience, great live shows, singing. I sing and play all the guitar, and I play live. I sing all the songs. I freestyle in the middle of the show, and had a bunch of songs in a bunch of movies and TV shows. It's kind of a passion project at this point, unless I'm still thinking I can somehow pop onto the, music scene at my age. But, we're still going. We played the Troubadour this year, and we played a couple festivals and did a little Southern tour. So, just trying to stay. It's my favorite thing to do is perform live. So, that instant gratification is what we do to keep that band alive,
Now, do you write all the music and it's been the same guys? Because I'm always fascinated how bands come together, because even in 2002, as you said, it wasn't like all this YouTube and Facebook, people used to have to find it. So how'd you guys get started? And you write all the music, right?
Yeah, I write all the songs. My songwriting partner, this guy who's in my band, his name is Dan, and we've been together since 2002 when we started the band. We knew each other through a sketch comedy group that I was in, that he was the musical director for. And I was just doing comedy at the time, but in my head, I really wanted to do this country rock dream of mine. And I sort of cornered him one night. I'm like, you got to help me with these songs. And he was like, well, what do you got? So he came over, we played, and he's like, let's start a band. And I was like, holy shit. Next thing you know, we were playing live. And then that got me that role in the movie Dead and Breakfast. And, at the same time, that ESPN reality show that you were talking about on ESPN Dream Job was starting out, and I was doing music sort of as like a bit with the whole thing, and they were using those songs. And then I was like, wait a minute, now I can really combine these two careers. And so now I have the Lobos Riders for serious music, but then I put out kind of comedy music under Rodeo Zach, which is sort of my, my hit songs, Redneck Dad, Jewish Mother. I'm sure you've heard that one.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I toured around, I went to Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia last year, Tennessee, the real America. It was cool.
Now, when you were younger, what was your focus? Was it music? Were you always a musical kid? Was it comedy? I mean, what did you want to do in those years in high school and right after high school?
Well, I was always into hip hop, and I was into acting, and I was always into comedy. And those are the three passions I can first remember. But I was also into sports broadcasting. So I was like, I don't know what I have to do to make this work. And so I went to college for broadcast journalism. And right after, all through college, I was acting, doing all the student plays I could do, all the student films. I was writing all the student films. And I went to USC, so everyone there was film kids, who wanted to break into the industry. And I thought, I'm just going to be an actor. I really thought I was going to get out of college, walk into an audition room, and become like Vince Vaughn. That's really what I thought was going to happen. Or SNL or something. And, you just kind of take all your chances. And so I guess my first love was really acting when I was younger. That's what I started. First time I really performed was acting on stage.
But tell me, I want to hear more about the ESPN show because I still remember, and I just actually saw your YouTube clip of the homeless guy doing ESPN thing, which you could talk about in a little bit. But tell everyone about the show because what year was that show? Was I can't even think what year it was, but I remember you. I remember you were like one guy I remember because you had a beard and you were a little bit heavier, I believe. Yeah. So
Oh,
tell me
certainly.
about-
I was
tell me
much
about-
a lot more beer back then, Coop.
Yeah.
2004. I was doing this character in my sketch show that was like a drunk sportscaster who couldn't leave it in the booth, and he would come home and be like, "Pass the mashed potatoes," very much like kind of a Brockmire thing, which Hank Azaria did, or even Will Ferrell's kind of Harry Carey character. It was sort of based on like what the sportscaster who can't leave it in the booth does outside of the booth when he has a fucked up home life. So I heard about this ESPN audition and I said, "Oh, I'm going to go in there and do this character." I went in as a joke, and I walked in and I did the audition in this kind of character, and they were like, "What are you doing? Why do you dress up like I had a full on like cowboy suit on, I had long ass hair, a big old beard." And they were like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Try it again, but serious." And I did, and I guess having all that journalism school hosting training worked out for me, but in the end of it, like after beating out 20,000 people and getting to the finals, I think, they went with my friend Mike who won it, and he's fantastic. And everyone in the show was great. But my thing was they sort of said, "Look, we like you, but we can't put you on the air looking like this." So then they gave me a couple pilots after that for them. I'd hosted Around the Horn. I don't know if you know that show. So I did some work for ESPN, but ultimately it was my look, I think. And now if you watch sports TV, I mean, you got Pat McAfee going on there sleeveless. Richard Sherman's got hair down to here and a big old beard. I mean, I was like tame compared to what's on TV now. So I broke the mold, man. That's what happened.
So what did you? What did every week did you guys do different? Did you work with the actual ESPN guys? Because that was a big time of Stuart Scott, I believe, and
Stuart Scott. It was the whole thing was to become a Sports Center anchor. The winner would get a year contract at Sports Center as an anchor, which was the dream for a lot of kids who love and grew up on sports, especially my generation. Sports Center was it. Chris Berman, Dan Patrick, Keith Olbermann, Craig Kilborn, Stuart Scott. These are our heroes. And so if you were witty and you could write jokes and be quick on the mic and in your teleprompter skills and interview skills, it was for you. And I just happened to hit all those boxes at the time. So that's what it was. And we worked with all of them. We worked with Neil Everett and Buchagras and Stuart Scott was a really close pal, rest in peace. Like these guys were all very supportive of us, and it was a great experience, and it changed my life. I mean, I went in there with a band, with my sketch comedy group, and by the time I left that competition, which was like March of 2004, I was getting TV offers. I had a new agent at William Morris. I was turning stuff down. So it was kind of a thing I was reluctant to do because I was so afraid to like make this my brand, but it was the best thing I ever did in my career.
Now, what kind of offers were you getting? Because I can imagine, well, you get anything in Hollywood. When you're hot, you're hot. It's like,
Right.
People know, oh, look at that person. Oh, and this is when reality TV, you guys actually had to have talent. It's not like bullshit now, like, hey, look, the Vanderpump Rules, or hey, look, I'm on the show, 1,000-pound sisters. It's like, I just saw preview for that. You had like your show. It was a competition show, and it was like before. I mean, I don't know if American Idol came out after that or around the same time, but that was singing. You guys had that talent. So when you got signed with William Morris, you said William Morris,
Yeah.
It's very big agency. What kind of offers were you getting when you got out?
Well, I did a pilot. I did like 3 pilots, one for Discovery Channel, stuff that didn't get picked up. I got Extreme Dodgeball with Bill Dwyer, who I think you know.
Yeah.
Bill and I hosted that. I was like the comedy color commentator guy. I think the role that Jason Bateman played in the movie. That's what I was doing on that show. And, Bateman's career and my career went different directions. But yeah, so that kind of stuff. I mean, I was offered a show. I think it came out. It was about that guy who went around the world like doing drugs. They wanted me to do that show. Fox offered me a dating show, and I was like kind of like reluctant to do this stuff because I knew I had potential to do what I wanted to do. So I turned down quite a lot of stuff, which, you can't really look back at with regret. But some of the shows I didn't turn down lasted 1 season. And some of the ones I did turn down went on to, big time success.
Like what? Give me one of the ones that went on big time success.
Well, that dating show on Fox, I don't even remember what it was called, but that went on for a long time. If I could remember the drug one, it was like someone's pharmacopoeia or something like that.
Now, was it hard for you to turn down the money? Because it's like once again, we all, there's all the old thing is so funny. When I optioned a screenplay years ago, and I got like $1,500 against like 100,000, and it wasn't anything I wanted to write. It was someone gave me a treatment. It was about a sports mascot. And people are like, "Oh, what do you sell out?" I'm like, "No, I'm not selling out. I'm trying to put books, but I don't want to wait cables. I want the money to come in." So, what was it for you? I mean, was it hard to turn that down because that is
every time I've had to turn something down, it's hard. Of course, it's heartbreaking for any performer, but what happens is if you take a job, like I took extreme dodgeball, so suddenly I had a cable, I forget what they used to call it, but you couldn't work for other channels that were competitors. So I would do this show and it would last. The contract said I can't work anywhere for 3 months. So sometimes in those little contract windows, I'd get offered like, "Oh, here's a food show. You're going to go on the road tasting food." And I'd have to say I can't do it because there's a competition. It's something, I don't even know. As you can see, it's been a while.
non-compete.
Thank you.
Non-compete.
So like those things limited a lot of the opportunities I had too, especially back then in the cable days when everyone was so protective of their brands. But yeah, anytime you got to turn something down, it sucks if you can't do it. I mean, I had movie acting jobs I couldn't do because I was on Attack of the Show, and I couldn't do some Discovery Channel show because I was on Attack of the Show, like certain things like that. But, you weigh the good with the bad and you just be happy you're working, and blessed to be working in any capacity in this business.
So you're getting these offers, you're doing this hosting. Are you going back to writing music still? What I mean, is it something at that time? Because it probably takes, I've heard about hosting. Gary Kroger was on a few weeks ago, who was on SNL, and he was telling me how he hosted shows, and you host like 6 shows in like 2 days. So then you have that free time, but then you're sort of burnt because hosting 6 shows in 2 days is, it's not like, it's not easy. It's not easy work. So what were you doing? Like after, were you still writing? I mean, when were you still focusing on your writing?
All my money went into making content for myself, making albums for my band, 100%. That's where I threw all my money. Making short films, making sketches. That's what I've always done with my money. Every time I've had any kind of success, I take my success and I put it back into more, trying to make more stuff happen and pray that it does. And, yes. And it's true because I've shot shows, 8 episodes, 10 episodes in 2 days, many times. But like Attack of the Show, which was a 3-year job, that was an ongoing show. I mean, I just shot content after content after content, day after day, 7 days a week, which was incredible. That didn't offer a lot of time for free, side projects. But yeah, you have a lot of free time when you're not consistently working. That's for sure.
You mentioned you're writing some sketches and stuff like that, and you write music. What's the different process of writing sketch and writing music? Because when you're writing music, you're writing the music and the lyrics, and when you're writing sketch, you have to have an idea. I had a sketch around in Hollywood for a year called The Bitter Optimists, and I wrote the whole show, and then I finally let it start people before 3 other guys in the group start writing it, and it just wasn't up to what I liked. But they're both. But how do you compare doing the both of them? Because they're both 2 completely different worlds.
My mind is weird, dude. I mean, it's strange because sometimes I'll wake up with a song in my head and I'm like, oh my God, I'll run to my guitar and I'll just write ideas and I'll sing things or I'll sing into my phone, like this. And sketch stuff, same thing. I kind of have the same initial idea. I write it down. And then if I feel like it's something I think about again, maybe a day later, I'll revisit it. Sometimes, like you just write a song in like 5 minutes and it's the best thing you've ever done. Sometimes you spend weeks on it. It all has a different process. The comedy writing and screenplay writing and feature writing and everything else I've done is something that you just have to lock into, and it can take a lot longer, of course, but sketch stuff is almost like a song. That's a good analysis because it's such short content, most of the time, and it's very easy to do. It's a lot harder to do a feature, but it's a good question. And, I can't explain. Some days I wake up and I feel like a comedian, and some days I wake up and feel like I should be on the road with like, Sturgill Simpson or something. So it's a weird balance I live.
So in this weird balance, I noticed you started a Substack. Explain to me a little I wanted to start a Substack, but I'm not really sure what it is. I know Steve Scrovan, who Emmy winner from Everyone Loves Raymond, he has a Substack. And I said Kyle Secor from Homicide and Love Street has his Substack, and they write about the shows. What made you start a Substack? And explain it to me, because I want to start a Substack. I think I should have called the Coopiverse of all the bullshit I write. We call it the Coopiverse. But tell me about Substack, why you got to start it, and what does your page counter? Because it's fascinating. It's great that we have so much. There's so much that we can put out there now, and it doesn't cost you anything, and it's not like and you can get eyes. So tell me about it.
Well, I didn't know about Substack until about 6 weeks ago when someone said, I write for this cannabis magazine called High, HIII, and I'm sort of their Hunter S. Thompson, like, short story writer. And my friends were saying, you need to turn this into your Substack, do like a cannabis kind of Substack. And I was like, I don't want to be the cannabis guy, really, but I'd like to talk about everything else. So I started writing about this neighborhood I live in Los Angeles called Franklin Village, which is over by UCB and Birds and La Poubelle in that area, if you're familiar. And I did it based on this guy who's writing about the East Side, which is called the East Side Rag. And his Substack actually makes him a lot of money somehow. And I haven't figured that part out yet. But apparently, if you can get like a neighborhood to follow you, and then you say, hey guys, listen, let's have a wine tasting at my house. It's $10. People do this if they like what you're putting out there. This is what I've heard. I haven't seen any proof of this yet. So what I've been writing about is all the stuff in the neighborhood that's kind of weird. Like, why is there a Jack Skellington with a Santa hat for sale at the local Gelson's for $462? I know everybody in the neighborhood has seen that, but so now I'm like putting it on paper just for like kind of to be funny. And, I review local alcohol beverages and new restaurants and coffee places and just sort of write about what's going on in here. And I use a lot of the history of, the neighborhood, like which celebrities lived where when they were starting out and what streets Bukowski like used to bring his hookers to. And, it's like, I don't think a lot of people living here know the history of it. I've been here 20 years. So you hear stories and, it's been fun. I took the rest of the year off, but I'll probably start up in early January again.
You wrote one. It was about Christmas lights and Trader Joe's, I believe.
Yeah. Well,
so tell me about that.
I was talking about how our neighborhood has no holiday festive Christmas decorations. It's not like if you go to Larchmont Boulevard, if you're familiar with LA, it's like an explosion of like Clark W. Griswold. Everyone's trying to outdo the next person. And so I just compared the two. Trader Joe's, I think I only talked about how they have a new like holiday martini. And as the local neighborhood lush, I had to review that. It's a hard pass, by the way. So yeah, just like things like that. And I don't expect everyone to read every single thing, but also I get to promote my other stuff. I'm like, by the way, this reminds me of this dreidel sketch I made with the Sklar brothers. And so I link to that, then people click on that, and that's been getting more views because of the Substack. So I think it's just another tool, that we're all using to get stuff out there.
Well, it's funny, Trader Joe's. That's one thing when I lived in Burbank, I would go to the Trader Joe's. The Trader Joe's parking sucks. And the thing about New Jersey, where I live now, is there's only in Princeton, New Jersey, is the only Trader Joe's, and that's about 40 minutes away from me, that sells alcohol. All the other Trader Joe's in New Jersey don't sell alcohol. And it bummed me out because, you could get a good bottle of scotch for like $14.99. You used to have the seasonal winter brew and the $2 chuck, of course. But I went to the one as at an event up in Princeton. Now it's like $4 for $4.99 for $2 chuck. And I'm like, it's still $2 chuck. It's crazy that, when you tell people that they go, wait, Trader Joe's? I said, yeah. I said, I used to go to Ralph's and get 6 bottles. You get like 30% off. So you get everything on Ralph's Clubs. So you get like $100 of booze for like $50, and they don't have that back east. So the Traders. What was wrong with the martini?
I am not moving to New Jersey. I'll tell you that right now. It was like half gin, half of a vodka. It's a drink called the Vesper, which is like the new hipster drink, I guess everyone's talking about. I don't like it, but I don't know. I was like, I've never tried a canned martini before, so it was in a bottle, but I had to try it. But it was just like you can just take some vodka and some ice at home and do this and you're good. No need to just buy the Trader Joe's version. That's just one of the things I was talking about, you know.
Now, the magazine is HII.
Hi, yeah, HII. It's a cannabis culture magazine out of California. It's like a coffee table book. Here, it's pretty thick. Like here's an issue. So it's really thick. You can see it's got like, what does that say? Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Willie Nelson quote, right? And so I write a story in each issue, and it's just really well done, put together. There was a magazine called Treats that it was sort of based on. I mean, look, it's a cannabis magazine, but like Porsche is advertising in it. So it's just kind of showing how that business is expanding and becoming a little less, I guess, frowned upon and a little less like stoner typical, stereotypes. And so anyway, I get to write comedy for them, so that's pretty cool.
How'd you get involved with that?
I wrote a short story, which probably would have been a Substack now, about going to see the Grateful Dead at the Sphere a couple years ago. Really funny. I called it Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And that's a good joke. My friend who's a editor was starting up this magazine. He read it. He said, "We want you to write stuff like this for us." And I said, "Great." So my next assignment is they want me to get high and go to Disneyland. So that should be fun. If I don't get arrested, I'll let you know how that goes.
Now, okay, because once again, New Jersey, it's legalized everywhere. In fact, where I live in Marlton, New Jersey, within 2 miles from my house, there's 5 dispensaries. Okay, 5. Like I don't partake, because I just can't handle it. It's nothing against it. I smoked the Jersey shit weed in high school and in college, but I just can't handle the new strain. But so are you big into partaking? And what is the pot scene like in LA? Because I remember years ago, the reason I stopped was I smoked some hydroponic stuff and I couldn't walk home from Fantasia on San Fernando Boulevard in Burbank to my place at 5th and Tahunga. I walked to the corner and I had to call my friend and say, "You got to pick me up." So that's why I'll smoke it. So what's the scene like now?
It's everywhere here, man. Everyone I know, most people aren't drinking as much in LA. Bars are closing at a rapid pace. The economy is really down here, as you've heard. The industry's in trouble. I mean, all that stuff has a bad effect on it. But cannabis has been slowly killing the bar business for sure. And I'm not a big stoner by any means. But, I did a series, which I encourage you and your viewers to check out for this magazine that I pitched. It's a vertical comedy series that was on my Instagram called LA Dispensary. And it's me and this actress, Megan Perry, who's an old improv buddy of mine, just doing the dispensary characters, like the 2 guys who work there. And we're just totally void of all, intelligence, but it's super funny, improvised, like a Curb Your Enthusiasm set in a dispensary. So what I've seen having worked for this magazine now is that cannabis is a huge footprint in LA. The problem is, if you really want to get into it, the legalization of it killed the ways to make money, because it's almost oversaturated now. The market has had a tremendous amount of new product. And so all the legacy growers, the people who used to make all the money illegally, aren't able to do that anymore. So it's evened itself out. And I don't know if legalization is the financial success that everybody thought it would be. I think it's hurt a lot more people in the game, but it's benefited the state, but I don't know. It's everywhere. I mean, I know you can walk down any street in LA, you're going to smell weed at any time.
It's crazy. So LA Dispensary, I know Michael Cornatia. That's his name, right? Michael.
Yeah,
I know him. He's that dude. I remember he booked me for a comedy show years ago, and it was around the 4th of July. And I was when I first started dating my now wife. So I come back to New Jersey once a month, and I'm exhausted. And I show up, and it's in some bar in WeHo. I mean, no, it was like total gay bar. And he walks in wearing he's dressed like Uncle Sam. Like, it was the funniest thing, like this cheap Uncle Chan outfit. And he's a hoot, man. I saw him on an old episode of Criminal Minds with him where he played a clown. And he's a Philly guy. But yeah. How do you know him, and how did he get involved with the show? Because I want to hear more about the show, because it looks fun, and it's always great that, once again, you're thinking outside the box. So you're producing this.
I created it, wrote it, directed it, produced it, and starred in it. Yeah. I know Michael through college. I met him we went to USC together. he was in the acting program. And right when I got out of school, I joined his sort of sketch comedy group that he was a part of with the girl Megan, who's in the show as well, where I developed that sportscaster character. And he's just the hands down funniest actor I've ever seen in my life, especially live. I mean, it's just watching him was like a comedy masterclass, on a level like I can't even explain back then. Like the fact that he never took off and got to a level beyond where he is just, I don't know. There's no saying what factors play into it, but that's how I met Michael. So I've put him in almost everything I've ever done. I used to do these sketches for TBS. I put him in those. I've had him play a mafia guy twice.
Tell me about the TBS. Tell me the TBS sketches.
Oh man, well I was a director of their digital entertainment division comedy side of things for a couple years in like 2016. So I did What If the Mafia Ran HR with him. I did back when there was like this big fear of clowns, I had him play a clown, go figure. And then we did, when I was on Attack of the Show, I put him in something called The Worst Ideas in Mafia History, which went very viral back then. And then, God, I don't know, I put him in everything. Then I put him in LA Dispensary because I knew he would be hilarious, and he absolutely is. He plays the owner's son of the dispensary, and he just killed it.
So, you have these albums.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I was just saying, the LA Dispensary show, I approached High Magazine and I said, listen, I want to do some media for you guys, because every magazine needs to have a media side now, or else, so digital media, digital presence. And so they said, okay, great. So I pitched them the show and they let me make it, and did really well. So hoping to make more this year. Just got to find a little more.
Now, where do you shoot it? Do you actually shoot it in a dispensary, or is it set up? Because where do dispensaries let you shoot in them, or because it would be free advertisement, I'm guessing. But
well, what was strange is the magazine set me up with this place called Pleasure Med. I don't know if you remember the Pleasure Chest in West Hollywood, which is a longtime sex shop, famous 70s sex shop. So the owner opened a dispensary right across the street, and he liked the idea, and he likes our magazine, and he let me shoot there for a very decent rate. And I told him I'd promote the dispensary in it and everything, and so that was a good collaboration.
So when you were having these jobs, like as you said, with TBS doing a digital thing, was it hard for you to work in that environment, because you have the musician side and you have the creative side, and even there to be creative, it's sort of suit. I don't know. I'm sure you didn't wear a suit, but it's more a corporate structure. And for someone who's, as you say, has these ideas, the ESPN, you went in as a joke. So it's not like you're this serious businessman. Is it hard for you to acclimate to it when there is more of a corporate structure?
Well, that was really my only corporate job, but it was a creative corporate job. They wanted me to be funny, come up with ideas, help their shows get more eyeballs, So what I did was I became sort of their like lead comedy writer, and I wrote songs. I did one that went viral called We're At a LaCroix, which everyone at TBS loved, and LaCroix sent us like 600,000 cans of LaCroix as like a thank you. And then I did the Dreidel Masters with the Sklar brothers for Hanukkah. That still gets hundreds of thousands of views every year. Things like that. So it was a very cool job. The only difference was I had to get up in the morning and go to work, versus what I'm doing now, which is lie around my house until ideas come around, at 10 a.m. Back then it was like be in Burbank at 9 a.m. Now that building doesn't exist anymore. The whole department got, taken away. This is just before the changeover from, everything to the phone, but that was a pretty interesting structure there, but it was a creative one, so I didn't mind it.
Now, I saw on your website that you do some corporate stuff, like some raps and stuff. Tell me about that, because I was like, because I read the description, I'm like, so wait, companies are calling him in to do raps. Like, you don't think about that like the corporate, but tell me about that, because once again, I think I run some networking events, and I go out and network, and a lot of times you go to these events, and I've moderated a few, but the speakers suck. They're always so full of themselves, and they're just sitting there and they're telling you shit. They always go, if I knew now. Well, you know what? I don't give a crap. Like, you don't know more than me. So how did you get into these? And tell me about the rap. It's just fascinating because you have a background in hip hop. You said you love hip hop when you were younger, but tell me about this corporate rapping. That's something I never. There's two words you never think. Corporate rapping.
It started when I was in college. Like, you would just get stoned or drunk, and everyone would try to freestyle rap with each other. And I was just always really somewhat good at it. And I kind of kept doing it with my friends' bands in my early 20s. And then when I started my band, I threw it in as sort of a joke in the middle of the set, and people were blown away because I'm rapping about everybody in the crowd and what they're wearing and all this stuff. And that's when my friend Matt Leweiler, who's a film director, saw me, and he was like, dude, I want you to play a rapping zombie in this movie Dead and Breakfast. So I did that. And from there, the freestyle thing just became a part of my sort of act, either in comedy or with the serious music. And I've had people say, dude, you have to come to my birthday party. It started like that. Come to my birthday party. I'll give you a few $100, rap about everyone there. And so I would go show up, do it, and leave. And then it became a thing where a guy said, oh, you should come out and do our corporate event. And so then all of a sudden you're making real money, and you're an interesting, like party trick in a weird way. But I was doing this for a long time, and now I'm seeing a lot of comedians and a lot of musicians and a lot of people doing stuff like this. So I'm trying to get more into that. I mean, I've done it. I do it a few times a year, but there are guys out there making absurd amounts of money doing what I'm doing in the same kind of manner. And you always kind of hope it's going to click, and if someone's going to find you who loves you and brings you on, but you never know. It's definitely just like trying to get an acting job or a writing job. You're always auditioning. You're always out there wondering what's next.
What is the industry like now? I hear so many different stories. I talk to writers. A lot of the guys I know, these writers, as they said, they've aged out. They would get too much. You can get someone cheaper. These guys who have been doing it forever, and actors say, with soft auditions, there's tape auditions. For you, at least you have that aspect. You can go out and tour with the music. But what is the industry like now? Like for you, who's a jack of all trades, what is it like? Is it hard to get work? Is it leaving LA? Because I know when I was there, it was great, but now I've heard there's nothing going on.
It's really bad here, man. It's picking up a little bit. I'd say 6 months ago, before the new tax breaks, it was pretty bad. I mean, a lot of my friends left. The fires killed a lot of hopes and dreams here, a year ago. That's the strike killed a lot of things. Everybody realizing it's cheaper to shoot anywhere but Los Angeles in the world. And there's a lot of people here like me who've made money and a living doing this who can't do it anymore because there's just not the guest star roles being cast. There's not the co-star roles, and the writing stuff. A lot of a lot of the younger kids aren't joining SAG anymore because there's more non-union work than union work. So it's really become a top 5% maybe of SAG is working and the rest is not. And if you don't do stuff like I do, if you don't have bands or like create your own series like LA Dispensary or things like that, or write a Substack, or if you're not doing all that stuff, you're not going to be working. It's just you mentioned Patrick O'Sullivan, who's in the same boat as I am. He's a dear friend still. And we talk about it all the time. It's just what we were doing 10 years ago isn't happening here anymore, unfortunately. And I do think things can turn around as long as there's not another SAG strike. I know this contract negotiations are coming up again, but it's really just not. There was a glory decade, or for me, it was like 15 years of just, this is awesome. I'm doing what I love to do. But now, yeah, I'm older. People are going younger. If you don't have the social media following here, you're not even going to get considered for roles. So, and everything's shooting out of town. So it's really tough in LA right now. It has been for a while. And you just hope it turns around,
So what keeps you going? I always ask this, because I always sit there, actors and what we do, and, any musician, there's so much rejection. And it's like Peter Breitmeyer was only 3 weeks ago, and he said, if you book 10%, you're doing great. He goes, think about it. That's if you book 10%, any other job, if you only close 10% of stuff, you're fired. He goes, you're screwed. Peter's works. I don't know if you know Peter. He's been in a lot of commercials and he's been in a lot of TV, and he works. And, he's sat there, but he's like, if you book 10%. So for a guy like you, I mean, luckily you have the focus. What keeps you going? Is it just inspiration? It's just your love, or it's like I don't want to do anything else, or I've been here, I've made the money, I know I made a living. What keeps you focused and going?
I think the hardest thing for any performer, any actor, or any writer who's had any modicum of success and has been told that they're really good at what they're doing is finding something else to do, because you're good, you have a talent, you have the skill, and you still think there's another break around the corner. So if you're this passionate about this business, you're going to stick with it no matter what, no matter how crappy of a job you have to take or what you're willing to do. A lot of people aren't willing to do that, so I don't know. I just don't know what else I'd be doing. I need to create in my mind. That's what I need to do just to move forward and to live comfortably with myself. And that's why I'm still doing it. I mean, it's not like there's been a lot of money, to drive you anymore. It's just like, do you do this because you love it, or do you because, like I see a lot of kids now in their early 20s who are asking me how I'm still doing this at my age, because they're like, we can't get hired, I'm going to quit. I'm like, that was never in my mindset. Probably yours either. I'm like, I'm never quitting. I was like fucking Marty Supreme. I'm like, failure doesn't even enter my head.
I just saw that today. I actually just saw. What did you think of the movie? I mean, funny thing is, I'm gonna say real quick. He and my wife said it. He was such a piece of shit when you break it down. That's so funny. Like Timothée Chalamet was great, but Joanne turns to me. She goes, he's just an awful person. But what did you think of the movie? Because you're a guy who, and the music, they had a bunch of 80s songs in it, which was great.
I liked that. I liked Chalamet. He was incredible. I loved the look of it. The thing I'm having a problem with, and a lot of people are getting upset because of this opinion, but there's a certain kind of character that's now become sort of a regular character in a lot of recent films. The Safdie brothers are sort of the first people to have done it. Like, they did Uncut Gems, and that Adam Sandler character, which everyone was praising and loving, and everyone loved the movie, I couldn't sit through it. I was on edge. I was full of anxiety. I didn't like him make all these terrible decisions and treat people the way he did. And I felt the same way about Marty Supreme. I liked the movie better than I liked Uncut Gems, but I had a hard time siding with the guy who was such a dick. I was like, this guy's such a fucking cocksucker. I'm like, if that guy did one thing to me, I'd be like, I don't ever want to talk to you again. So I don't know, man. I mean, the crazy thing about this movie was I talked about it for hours and hours on end after I saw it, which is a sign of a great film. I don't care what you think of the movie. And I don't know. I think I thought the same thing you did. I was like, it was hard for me to really like this guy.
Yeah, and that's funny though. It's one of those things. Well, yeah, that was for me. And then this show is hysterical, but the studio, I really didn't like in the beginning, Seth Rogen's cut. No, is it Seth Rogen? Yeah, Seth Rogen's cut. It was too Larry Davidish, not with Larry Davidish. But then it was such a funny show. I mean, Bryan Cranston was just amazing. And I don't know if you've seen it, but you're sitting there and you're like, he's always fucking up. And it's like, just don't be like an ass kisser, just be yourself.
Right.
And I think with Hollywood, Hollywood, that started back with The Shield. When Vic Mackey, he was a jerk, but you liked him. But you're right. Now it's like those guys, like Tony Soprano was a guy that you liked. But the thing is, even though he was a bad guy, but you didn't look at him as a total dick. But you're right. Like Marty Supreme is a dick.
I don't know. It's hard to watch people fuck up opportunity or just moment after moment, and you just kind of, at one point I found myself going, all right, let's get to the final scene. I don't know. I'll probably watch it again at some point, but yeah, hey, hats off to Chalamet. What a fucking performance. My goodness. What an actor.
Now, as an actor, what have been some of your favorite roles? Because you've been in different stuff. What have been some of your career highlights for acting?
The TV show Trailer Park Boys. I don't know if you know that out of Canada. Trailer Park Boys is a huge, it's the Always Sunny in Philadelphia sort of Canada. They're like these cult hero 3 Canadian dudes who live in a trailer park. And last year I was in their film. It's called Standing on the Shoulders of Kitties. And Billy Bob Thornton's in it. And a bunch of rock stars, Ronnie Wood from the Stones. And, the Trailer Park Boys are all in it. And I was in that, got to play a guitar player who was borderline homeless, but also I got to write 5 songs on the soundtrack with Bubbles, the singer of the band, because it's about a band that goes through the UK on a tour. I got to go to the UK on tour and get in a tour bus for the first time and like sleep and be treated like a rock star all at the same time we're filming scenes for the movie. And that was a dream come true um situation for me. It was the best summer of my life, summer of 2023. And I got to be friends with, Billy Bob and Pat Roach, who's a star of the movie as well. And movie came out, went to the premiere, like red carpet, that whole thing. Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses was there. He's like, "You're funny, man." I'm like, "Holy shit, you're Duff fucking McKagan." So that to me that's the greatest acting experience I've ever had in my life, and it was a dream come true. Something that I didn't think I could ever come close to something like that again. I hope if I can come close to something like that, I'd be very, very lucky.
So who are some of your, because you do sketch and you write, who's some of your comedy influences and who are some of your musical influences? Because once again, like I have so many musicians I like, but I suck at music.
Yeah.
I suck. But for you play. Is there anyone that you would like to pattern your music career after, or someone that was a real influence for you?
Well, I wish if I had made it at age 24, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was a huge country rock fan. I mean, Laurel Canyon scene, the Jackson Browne, Eagles, Warren Zevon. That was my first real foray into that type of music. And then as it grew up and I got into Whiskey Town and the old 97s and the Jayhawks, and then later on the Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, that era of country rock and outlaw country, Waylon Jennings. And, so those are all sort of my country rock, serious music influences. But then hip hop wise, I was always an old school guy like KRS-One, Slick Rick, the Beastie Boys. Those guys definitely paved my interest in that art form. So yeah, that's some of the music stuff. The comedy heroes, when I was younger, the first guy who really, of course, like all of us, was Eddie Murphy. But then it was, for me, I was like the Second City guys. I was a John Candy, Rick Moranis, Eugene Levy, Martin Short, Strange Brew kind of guy. My brother is Canadian, my stepbrother, and he would show me all these VHSs he had of SCTV. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So that made me want to be a sketch comedy guy, way more than SNL did, which is funny. But SNL was, as I got older, I realized, wow, I could be Sandler. I could be, one of these guys. I could be Sudeikis. Even to this day, I'm like, I could have been Sudeikis and the Sandberg in that level. But like, those are the guys that always inspired me. So yeah. And Dice Clay was always a big one too. Shout out to the Dice man.
I opened some Dice. It was my first gig. It was years ago. So now also you do shorts, The Big Dirty. What's The Big Dirty?
Well, based on my ESPN success, I did this podcast with my friend Sim called the Big Dirty Sports Card Podcast, where it was just me just opening up baseball and basketball cards and making fun of the pictures on them. But since then, it's turned into more of like a podcast about like some legendary athlete who has, like Rube Waddell. Like these are guys, they're all like old alcoholic dudes who grew up like throwing rocks at crows. That's how they learned their curveball. they they like grew up in the back of like a train car, and then they made the MLB, and they were drunk on stage and they got arrested, or they were drunk on the mound and they got arrested multiple times for sexual assault. Like, so it's like these kind of just dirty, crazy, anyone from like that to John Daly, those are the kind of guys who I always like to talk about, because they're very, they're not your typical LeBron James athletes. These guys are like John Daly smoking cigarettes on the golf course, drinking 30 beers per round. I'm like, that's the athlete that we're going to honor and celebrate on this show.
Now you also make fun of Embiid, which, me being a Philly fan, I'm tired of Embiid because he's always hurt, and it's like always something. And my buddy calls him the flopper because it's always like So what? I forget why'd you talk about Embiid?
I don't know why did I talk about Joel Embiid? Probably just because I was sick of him being hurt all the time, and you know what? I had a whole thing about just the load management thing. When Kawhi Leonard was only playing like 20 games in a regular season, and Embiid was doing that too. And, like it happens because you spend a lot of money to go to the NBA. Like my son, he wanted to go see the Lakers play the Trailblazers, I think. And he ended up seeing DeAndre Ayton because Luka sat out, LeBron sat out, Austin Reeves sat out. And he's like, what did I just spend $200 on tickets for? So that's why I was making fun of Embiid, because I feel like Yeah.
It does suck. It does suck. You're right, because it's so expensive now. Sports are so expensive, and it's just crazy, especially in LA, like a Lakers game. So, okay. So someone comes up to you next week and says, you can pick one thing. It could be a project that incorporates everything. You could do music, you can tour, you can be a rock star, you can have SNL. What would you pick? I mean, would it be a hard? What would be your first go to? Because you do so much, or you could be an ESPN guy. Because you have done stuff. What would your choice be?
It's the question people have asked me so many times over my career, but at this point in my life, I think I would like to be a creator and like a star of a series, of a show. Kind of like what I did with LA Dispensary, but something like that. Either that or make movies I've written. That's kind of what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be in the stuff I write. So if someone would give me an opportunity to do that, and I could do sort of what, not, I don't even need to direct stuff. It's just more about writing and performing. So that would be it. And because everything I do incorporates all the things that I love to do, like music. Like if you read any of my scripts, my characters that I write for myself always have some musical background, So I think it would be something like that. Definitely not an ESPN reporter. Sorry.
All right. Well, you never. But okay. So here's my final question. It's the question I always ask every guest. It can be both personal and professional. It's up to you. It can be both. Looking back at your career, because you've been successful. You've stuck with it, with so much use. So many people are quitting and leaving. What are a few things that just make you really, really proud? Like they look and you go, man, I fucking did this. I mean, what makes you proud?
I mean, everything I think I've ever put out in a weird way I've been proud of it. But the Trailer Park Boys movie, I was very proud of. The novel I put out, I wrote a novel over COVID. That's coming out in March, actually nationwide, which is amazing. I'm very proud of that because that was something I always wanted to do. And all the movies are called me. It's called Austin. It's called The Stoner Chronicles, Volume 1, Austin Translation. And it's about a true crime podcaster who goes to Austin to meet with someone about a show, and he gets accused of a murder and has to clear his own. And he has to prove his innocence. So it's the first of a trilogy. So I finished the second book already, and I'm working on the third one right now. I'm very proud of that. Music I've done, I'm pretty proud of. So I think I'm happy with a lot of the stuff I've done. I don't like to look back as much. A lot of people what you notice in this business, if you're a musician or an artist or someone who wants to make movies or comedy, people are afraid to fail, and if you don't put out stuff all the time, you'll never put stuff out. Right. Like, so people aren't always willing to face the criticism and, or the rejection, but I think if you've been auditioning for as long as I have and winning 10% of the time, like you said, you're used to that, you're used to that sort of lifestyle. So I'm proud of anything I've ever done because it's just lucky to be able to do it,
Well, this has been awesome, man. Now, how can people find all your stuff? How can they find all the wonderful Zach Selwyn stuff, the music, everything? You have so much stuff. I know you have the link tree, I think, on your one site. I don't even understand link tree. I don't
I know.
Well,
Zach,
how can people...
ZachSelwyn.com, man. That's where a lot of the stuff is. It's a very outdated. I think I've Flash on the thing. It's like the almost outdated fucking website of all time. But it's all I got right now. I'm sure I could have AI build me some gorgeous website, but it's all there. I got TV appearances on there. I got live shows I'm doing. I got like links to sketches and bands and podcast and all the stuff you're talking about. So I really appreciate you. I know it's hard to like put me in a box there with all the stuff I do, but I appreciate you reaching out.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So people at Zach, Z-A-C-H, Selwyn, S-E-L-W-Y-N.
That's it.
Now, people, you can also go to coopertalk.net. I haven't been focusing on that much, but I actually have the wonderful John Ailes coming up, and I'm interviewing Roma Mafia tomorrow. And I'll be having, I can't think of his name, the lead singer from Haircut 100. He did my show years ago. He's going to be on January promoting their new album. Also, me and my friend I knew in LA, lawyer John Fagerholm, Mission Matters, produces our podcast called Lawsuits and Lessons. We have entrepreneurs come on. We talk about them. We talk about some law stuff with him. Also, if you find past episodes of my award-winning podcast, The Coop Tank, I'm on hiatus, but there's about 200 episodes. I have a roundtable discussion with local Philadelphia and New Jersey business people. And don't forget Coop's comedycorner.com. You can get all Cooper talk, Coop's Comedy Corner, and the Coop Tank stuff. And follow Comedy Trainwreck, because Jimmy Corhan does so much for the industry in Philly, works his ass off. He has a new documentary coming out about the legendary Wid. He produces my show. He produces Tommy Highland's show, the Wid show, Coleman Green show, and McGonigal. It goes on. So Jimmy's awesome. So people, go look at ZachSelwyn.com. He's got some great stuff. Find on his YouTube, Facebook. If you find he does the homeless guy, just posted, and I just saw recently the Sklar Brothers is up. So go check him out. People, I want to thank you. We're gonna have a great 2026, and you all have a great week.
Coop's Comedy Corner.